Welcome to my channel, my friends. Today, I want to take you on a journey, an exciting journey that could change the way you think about life, money, and success. What I'm about to share isn't just a story, it's a lesson that has transformed millions of lives, including mine. We're talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the most powerful books ever written on how to achieve financial freedom. Imagine this. You're a young boy or girl growing up, watching the adults in your life. One person says, study hard, get a good job, and save money. Another says, learn how money works, make it work for you, and build wealth. Two completely opposite ideas. Which one would you follow? This was the life of Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He had two father figures in his life, two men with very different beliefs. He called them his poor dad and his rich dad. Poor Dad was his biological father, a highly educated man with a good job. He worked as a teacher and always believed that success comes from working hard, getting good grades, and climbing the career ladder. But despite his education, Poor Dad struggled. He lived paycheck to paycheck, worried about paying bills, and believed that talking about money was impolite. Rich Dad, on the other hand, was not highly educated. He didn't have a fancy degree or a government job. But he had something even more valuable, knowledge about money. Rich Dad owned businesses, made investments, and believed that financial education was more important than formal education. He said, "You don't work for money, you make money work for you." Now imagine being a young boy like Robert, standing between these two men. Both of them are giving you advice, but their advice couldn't be more different. Poor Dad said, "Get a good job for security." Rich Dad said, "Create jobs for others." Poor Dad said, "Money is the root of all evil." Rich Dad said, "The lack of money is the root of all evil." Robert was confused at first. He loved both of them, but he started noticing something. Poor Dad, despite his intelligence, was always stressed about money. Rich Dad, despite not being as educated, was always relaxed and confident about his future. One day, Robert asked Rich Dad, "Why are you so confident about money?" Rich Dad replied with a smile, "Because I understand how it works. Most people don't. They work hard all their lives for money, but never learn how to make it work for them." That one sentence changed everything for Robert. It planted a seed in his mind, a seed of curiosity. He decided to learn from Rich Dad, to understand his secrets, and to follow in his footsteps. Now let's pause here for a moment and reflect on this. Isn't this the reality for so many of us? We grow up being told, go to school, get a good job, save for retirement. But has anyone ever taught us how to handle money? How to grow it? How to escape the cycle of working just to pay bills? Your mindset about money shapes your future. If you see money as something scary or evil, you'll always struggle with it. But if you see money as a tool, something you can control and grow, you'll open the door to freedom and opportunity. Think about it. If you had two paths in front of you, one leading to financial struggles and the other to financial freedom, wouldn't you want to know how to choose the right one? That's exactly what we'll uncover today. Rich Dad continued teaching Robert. And every conversation opened Robert's eyes even wider. One day, Rich Dad said something Robert couldn't forget. The rich don't work for money. Robert was puzzled. He thought, what do you mean? Isn't money the reason people work? Rich Dad explained with a smile. No, Robert. The poor and middle class work for money. But the rich make money work for them. That is the difference. He explained how most people live their lives in a cycle, a trap he called the rat race. Rich Dad said, when you're young, you go to school. There, you're taught to study hard so you can get a good job. Once you get a job, you work hard to earn money. With that money, you buy things like a house or a car. But those things come with bills, mortgages, loans, taxes, and repairs. So you work even harder to pay for them. It never ends. Then he added, people think they're working for financial security. But they're actually working for their boss, the government, and the bank. The harder they work, the deeper they get into this cycle. This is why they never escape the rat race. He gave an example. Imagine a man named John. John earns $3,000 a month. As soon as he gets a raise and starts earning $4,000, what does he do? He buys a bigger house, a better car, a new phone. His expenses grow with his income. Instead of saving or investing, he keeps spending. Now John has to work even harder to cover these new expenses. This cycle keeps him trapped forever. Robert nodded. He realized that this was exactly what his poor dad was doing. Then Rich Dad asked, do you know what financial freedom means? Robert shook his head. Rich Dad explained. Financial freedom means having enough income from your investments or assets to cover your expense. When you reach that point, you don't have to work unless you want to. Your money works for you. He continued. People think being rich is about having a high-paying job. But even someone earning a lot can be broke if their expenses are too high. True wealth comes from having assets that generate income, not from earning a big salary. Rich Dad gave Robert a simple but life-changing lesson about assets and liabilities. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket, even when you're not working. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Case 1. Buying a car. A young man saves $10,000 and buys a car. The car needs fuel, maintenance, and insurance. Over time, the car loses value. This is a liability because it takes money out of his pocket. Case 2. Investing in property. Another man saves the same $10,000 and buys a small piece of land. He rents it out for $200 a month. Over time, the land's value increases, and it continues to generate income. This is an asset because it puts money into his pocket. Robert was amazed. He realized how often people confuse liabilities for assets. A house, a car, or even expensive clothes may feel like wealth, but they don't generate income. They cost money. Rich Dad told him, "The rich buy assets first. They invest in things that make money for them: businesses, real estate, stocks, and even education to increase their skills. These investments generate passive income. Once they have enough assets, they can afford luxuries without worrying about money." Rich Dad gave another example to make it crystal clear. Think of two families. Both earn $5,000 a month. Family A spends all their money on rent, food, and entertainment. At the end of the month, they have nothing left. Family B spends $4,000 and invests $1,000 in stocks. Over time, their investments grow. They start earning $500 a month from dividends. Eventually, this passive income grows large enough to cover their expenses. Family B becomes financially free. Family A is still stuck in the rat race. Robert now understood it wasn't about how much money you earn. It's about how you manage it. Rich Dad gave another powerful lesson. Most people think, "I can't afford it." But the rich think, "How can I afford it?" This small change in mindset made a huge difference. He explained, "When you say I can't afford it, your brain shuts down. But when you ask how can I afford it, your brain starts looking for solutions." Rich Dad gave Robert a task. Whenever you want something but think you can't afford it, write down 3 ways to make it happen. Maybe you cut expenses. Maybe you start a side hustle. Maybe you learn a skill that pays more. This exercise trains your mind to think like the rich. But Robert was still hesitant about investing. He asked Rich Dad, "What if I lose my money?" Rich Dad smiled. "That's the difference between the rich and the poor. The poor are afraid of losing money, so they never take risks. The rich understand that failure is part of learning. If you make a mistake, you don't give up, you learn and try again." Rich Dad then shared a simple wealth-building plan, even for people starting with very little. Track your expenses, write down everything you spend for a month. Identify unnecessary spending. Start small, begin with small investments, like savings accounts or stocks. Learn every day, read books, attend seminars, find mentors. Build assets first, focus on buying things that generate money before spending on luxuries. Reinvest profits, don't spend the money your investments earn. Reinvest it to grow faster. As Robert started applying these lessons, he saw a shift in his thinking. He no longer saw money as something to be spent, he saw it as a tool to create more money. His mindset shifted from scarcity to abundance. Then, one day, Rich Dad said something unexpected. To become wealthy, you must first learn to control your emotions. Robert asked, "What do emotions have to do with money?" Rich Dad smiled. Everything. Most people let fear and greed control their financial decisions. And these emotions keep them poor. He explained. Fear makes people stay in jobs they hate. They're afraid they won't be able to pay bills, so they settle for a paycheck, never taking the risk to create wealth. Imagine someone wants to start a business, but they don't. Why? They're afraid of failing. Afraid of losing money. So they stay in a job that barely lets them survive, but never lets them thrive. Rich Dad continued. The rich feel fear too, but they don't let it stop them. They know fear is normal. But they act in spite of it. That's how they grow. He explained how greed traps people as well. Greed makes people believe that buying more things will make them happy. A bigger car, a fancier house, a branded phone, but these things only create more expenses and stress. He paused and said, True happiness doesn't come from owning things. It comes from freedom, the freedom to do what you love and spend time with those you care about. And that freedom comes from building assets, not spending money. Rich Dad said, People are afraid of money because they don't understand it. They don't know how to invest, so they avoid it. They don't know how taxes work, so they overpay. They don't know how to grow wealth, so they stay poor. He encouraged Robert to start learning investments, understand stocks, real estate, and how money grows. Taxes, learn how the rich pay less through legal strategies. Markets, know when to buy and when to sell. He added, The more you know, the less afraid you'll be. Knowledge gives you power over fear. As Robert continued learning from Rich Dad, his vision of the world began to change. Rich Dad gave him a powerful piece of advice. Stop thinking like a consumer. Start thinking like an investor. He explained. Let's say you earn $1,000. A consumer will spend it on clothes, gadgets, or entertainment. But an investor will ask, how can I use this $1,000 to make more money? An investor might buy stocks, invest in a business idea, or learn a high-income skill. Over time, the investor's money grows, while the consumer's money disappears. Rich Dad taught Robert how to see opportunities that most people miss. He said, When you walk down the street, don't just look at shops, ask yourself, how could I own one of these? What does this business need to succeed? Train your mind to think like an owner, not just a customer. Robert started practicing this. He began noticing a small cafe for sale, An old house that could be renovated and rented out. A website idea that could become a business. The world was full of possibilities, he just needed the mindset to see them. But not everyone believed in Robert's journey. People told him, "You're too young to invest. That's too risky. Focus on a stable job." Even poor Dad warned him, "Play it safe. Don't chase risky dreams." But Rich Dad encouraged him. People will always criticize what they don't understand. They speak from their own fears, not yours. If you listen to them, you'll end up like them, stuck in the rat race. Rich Dad continued, "You don't have to start big. In fact, small wins build the strongest confidence." He shared the story of a young woman who wanted to invest, but had only $50. Instead of waiting, she started buying shares in small companies. Over time, her investments grew, so did her confidence. Success, Rich Dad said, is built step by step. Each small win gives you the courage to aim higher. Then Rich Dad talked about daily habits. Your habits determine your future, he said. He recommended 2 simple habits. Pay yourself first. Always save or invest a part of your income before spending on anything else. Track your progress. Keep a journal of your financial growth. Watching your progress will motivate you to keep going. He warned Robert. Many people fail because of one thing, impatience. They give up too soon because they want quick results. But building wealth is like planting a tree. You water it. You protect it. And you wait. Over time, it grows strong and provides shade and fruit for years. Then came one of Rich Dad's most important lessons. Money is a tool, not the goal. The real goal is freedom. Freedom to live on your terms. Freedom to follow your passions. Freedom to help others. That day, Robert felt something shift deep inside. He was no longer just learning about money. He was learning about life. One day, after many lessons, Rich Dad said, "Now you're ready for the truth. Success is not about luck or talent. It's about your mindset, your discipline, and your actions." He continued, "Many people dream of becoming rich, but very few take action. They wait for the right time. They wait for more money. But the best time to start is now." He gave an example. 2 friends make the same promise. One says, "I'll start investing when I earn more." The other starts saving just $10 a week. 10 years later, the second one has built a fortune while the first is still waiting. Opportunities are everywhere, he said. But only those who act on them see results. Don't wait until you're ready. Start with what you have. Rich Dad also taught Robert that failure is not the opposite of success, it's a part of the journey. He shared a story about a man who started 5 companies. All of them failed. People laughed at him, called him a fool. But on his 6th attempt, he built a company that changed his life. Rich Dad asked, "Do you think he would have succeeded if he stopped after his first failure?" Then came one of the final and most surprising lessons. Rich Dad said, "The richest people in the world are those who give back." Robert was confused. "How does giving make you richer?" Rich Dad explained, "When you help others, you create value. Whether it's sharing knowledge, mentoring, or donating, giving back multiplies your success." He told the story of a businessman who started a scholarship fund. It changed hundreds of lives. And it also brought him joy, respect, and new opportunities. Finally, Rich Dad said, "The moment you stop learning, you stop growing." Years later, Robert looked back on his journey and realized, Rich Dad's lessons didn't just make him wealthy in money. They gave him freedom, confidence, and the power to help others. Robert shared this message. No matter where you are in life, you have the power to change your future. It doesn't matter if you're starting from nothing. What matters is your mindset and your willingness to act. Wealth is not just about money. It's about creating a life where you can follow your dreams, help others, and live without regrets. So, as you finish this story, remember. Backhand index pointing right. Your journey to financial freedom begins today. Start small. Stay consistent. Learn from your failures. Dream big. And never ever give up. Because the only limit to your success is the one you place on yourself. The world is full of opportunities. They're waiting for you to take the first step. Your time is now. Make it count.